Obu was once a place full of life. The people farmed the land, children played in green fields, and every evening, the drums echoed with joy. The rain always came when it was needed, soft, gentle, like a blessing. But then, everything began to change. The skies stayed clear. The rivers grew thinner. The crops stopped growing the way they used to. What started as a dry season became something more. The drought came slowly, like a quiet thief in the night. Weeks turned into months. The soil hardened. Leaves curled and fell. People looked up at the sky with hope, but the clouds gave nothing. The village held on, praying, waiting. Some said the earth was angry. Others said the people had forgotten the old ways. But no one truly knew why the rain had stopped coming. And then, one night, the wind began to blow again. Not like before. This wind had a voice. It howled through the trees, shaking the old houses. The lightning came suddenly, cracking across the sky like a warning. And in the middle of that storm, a baby was born. His name was Adisa. They said his cry rose above the thunder, that it echoed longer than the storm itself. No one understood it then, but from that moment on, the village of Obu would never be the same. Adisa was not like the other boys in Obu. He didn't laugh loudly or chase goats through the village paths. He didn't care much for games or stories about warriors. Instead, Adisa spent his days sitting under trees, listening to the wind, to the birds, even to the silence. Some people said he was just a quiet child. Others said he was strange. He lived in a small mud house at the edge of the village with his grandmother, Mama Nia, an old woman with milky white eyes and a voice as soft as river water. She had been blind since Adisa was a baby, but somehow she always knew where he was. "Adisa," she would whisper, "what did the sky tell you today?" He would smile, sit close, and say, "It was thinking about rain again." The villagers didn't know what to make of him. They said he hummed songs no one had taught him, old rhythms the elders hadn't heard in years. He would trace shapes in the dirt with a stick, strange symbols that even the oldest among them didn't recognize. At night, he often woke up from dreams, covered in sweat. And the next morning, he would draw. Always draw. One day, he drew flames. Bright, twisting flames swallowing something big. He didn't say a word about it. He just handed the drawing to Mama Nia. The very next day, the village woke up to shouting. The chief's yam barn, the biggest in Obu, was on fire. The smoke rose high into the sky, just like Adisa had seen it in his dream. People ran with buckets. They cried and screamed. And in the middle of the panic, Adisa just stood there, quietly watching, as if he already knew. That evening, the villagers gathered around him. They looked at his calm eyes, his bare feet, the drawing still in his hand. No one said it out loud, but in their hearts they began to wonder, who is this boy, really? A few nights after the fire, a storm rolled in from the mountains. Not rain, just wind and lightning. Sharp, wild lightning that cracked the sky in pieces. The thunder shook the ground like angry footsteps. Even the dogs didn't bark that night. They just hid. When the storm finally passed, the village was silent. But Adisa was nowhere to be found. Mama Nia sat by her doorway, hands trembling. She whispered into the dark, "He is near the trees. I feel it." The next morning, they found him. He was lying at the base of the ancient Irako tree, the oldest tree in all of Obu. No one had gone near it in years. Not since the old stories warned them to stay away. They said the tree held memories too old for young minds. Adisa's body was cold, but he was breathing. He looked peaceful, as if he had only fallen asleep. But when the villagers turned his hand over, they froze. Right in the center of his palm, something glowed. A soft, golden spiral. It shimmered like fire, even in daylight. The crowd stepped back. Some whispered prayers. Others looked away. One of the elders, Baba Efeji, was called to see it. His hands shook as he knelt beside Adisa. He stared at the mark for a long time, his lips pressed tight. Finally, he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "This is the mark we buried with silence. The mark of Oru." The villagers looked at each other, confused. "What does it mean?" someone asked. Baba Efeji stood slowly. His eyes were full of something no one had ever seen in him before, fear. "It means the old ways, the ones we tried to forget, have returned." He looked at Adisa once more and said quietly, "We were not meant to see this again." And with that, he turned and walked away. Adisa did not wake for 2 more days. But when he did, he was no longer just a boy. He was a seer marked by something ancient, something that had waited a very long time to return. After the lightning storm, Adisa was never quite the same. At first, it was little things. The way the air felt heavier when he walked by. The way birds stopped chirping when he entered the forest. The way animals turned their heads to stare at him, not with fear, but with recognition. At night, his voice began to change. He would talk in his sleep, mumbling things no one could understand. Mama Nia sat by his mat and listened carefully. One night she whispered, "That is not your voice." Adisa opened his eyes. "They speak inside me," he said. "Old words. Words I've never heard before." Mama Nia's hands trembled. "They are ancestral tongues, Adisa. Languages the world has forgotten, but not the spirits." Some nights, the trees around their home swayed, though the wind was still. Fireflies gathered around his window like stars refusing to leave. And in the silence, the ground itself seemed to breathe beneath him. One evening, Adisa found Mama Nia staring into the fire, her face dark with memory. He asked softly, "Do you know why I have this mark?" She didn't answer at first. "But then," she said, "your mother had it too." Adisa froze. "Before you were born, before the last drought, she was chosen. The same way you were." He had never known much about his mother. She had died when he was a baby. That was all he'd been told. But now, Mama Nia continued, they feared her, not because she was dangerous, but because she knew things they wanted buried. They stopped the ritual, silenced her before it could be completed. Adisa felt something twist in his chest. Fear, anger, confusion, all at once. He looked down at his glowing palm. "Why?" he asked. "Why did they fear the seers?" Mama Nia looked straight ahead, her blind eyes somehow full of truth. "Because seers see what others hide. They speak what the powerful want kept quiet." And in the darkness of that small hut, Adisa finally understood. His gift was not just a gift. It was a burden. And somewhere, someone did not want him to carry it. There was a place in Obu that no one dared to enter, the Forbidden Grove. The trees there grew tall and thick, their branches tangled like a secret no one wanted to share. The villagers said it was cursed, that spirits whispered warnings to those who wandered too close. But Adisa felt a pull he couldn't explain. One afternoon, he slipped away from the village and stepped into the shade of the grove. The air was cool and smelled of earth and old stories. At the very center stood the oldest tree of all, the dreaming tree. Its bark was silver in the sunlight. Its leaves shimmered like stars. Adisa walked slowly toward it, his heart beating loud in his chest. Then everything changed. Suddenly, his legs gave out. He collapsed beneath the great tree, and the world around him blurred. In his mind, he saw a vision, like a story told without words. He saw the first seers of Obu, cloaked in shadows and light. They were the ones who guided the village when the earth was young, through dreams, signs, and secret songs. They walked between worlds, listening to the whispers of the sky and the voice of the trees. A soft voice echoed in his mind, clear and gentle like a breeze. You are not here to rule, but to remember. Adisa's eyes snapped open. A single golden leaf floated down from the dreaming tree, landing softly in his palm. It glowed warmly, and he felt a fire burning inside his chest. Without thinking, he slipped the leaf into his pocket. His heart thundered. The old stories were real, and he was a part of something much bigger than himself. Adisa knew what he had to do. He gathered the village council, the elders, the chiefs, the people who made the rules. With a steady voice, he told them, I must perform the rite of listening, the ancient ritual our ancestors used to hear the earth and sky. The room fell silent. Then, murmurs spread like wildfire. Some elders shook their heads, their faces hard with anger. The seers betrayed us long ago, one said. They brought danger, not help. Others whispered something different, fear mixed with hope. Maybe this drought is punishment, another said, for silencing the seers and their ways. The council became divided. Voices rose. Old wounds reopened. Outside, the villagers gathered, restless and scared. Whispers grew louder. A mob formed, angry and afraid. They wanted to cast Adisa out, said he was cursed, bringing trouble to Obu. Mama Nia stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. She began to chant, an old protection prayer, words passed down in secret. Her voice filled the air like a shield. But just as the mob hesitated, she collapsed. The crowd gasped. The sky darkened. A few drops of rain fell, soft and cold against the dry earth. For a moment, hope blossomed. Then the rain stopped. The silence returned. And the village stood divided, caught between fear and belief, between old hatred and desperate hope. Late that night, when the village was asleep, Adisa slipped away. He moved quietly through the shadows, his heart pounding with both fear and hope. He reached the ancient shrine, a place overgrown with vines and forgotten by most. There, he picked up an old drum, worn but still strong. He began to drum. Slow at first, then louder, steady, like the beating of a giant heart. The wind stirred. Leaves lifted and swirled around him like dancers in a silent song. Then, from deep in the grove, other drums answered, soft, distant, and mysterious. Voices whispered through the rustling leaves. Old voices, forgotten voices. Do not speak. Let the land remember. Adisa closed his eyes and listened. One by one, curious and afraid, villagers followed the sound. They crept into the grove, drawn by the strange music. At first, they stood in silence, unsure. Then slowly, one by one, they knelt down. They listened. And in that moment, something began to change. After the night of the ritual, something incredible happened. The sky grew heavy with dark clouds. Then, slowly at first, a single drop of rain fell. Then another, and another. The ground, thirsty for so long, drank with joy. Puddles formed. Rivers swelled. The earth sighed in relief. It was the first rain the village had seen in many years. But something else changed. Adisa's glowing mark, the mark of Oru, began to fade. And his voice, it disappeared. He could no longer speak aloud. But he did not stop guiding his people. Instead, Adisa began to share what he saw in dreams. He drew symbols in the dirt. He pointed to signs in the sky and the land. The villagers stopped mocking him. They no longer called him strange or cursed. Now they called him the silent one who listens. Years passed, and the village of Obu blossomed again. The rains came more often. The fields grew green. Children laughed and danced beneath the dreaming tree, their feet soft on the grass. Adisa had grown too. No longer the strange boy, but a calm and wise young man. He taught the children by pointing to the sky, drawing symbols in the dirt, and playing gentle rhythms on his drum. One day, a curious child asked him, "Why don't you speak like before?" Adisa smiled, soft and knowing. He tapped his chest, then the earth beneath them. "Because the truth," he said quietly, "grows where it's heard, not shouted." And in that simple truth, the village found peace. One quiet evening, a newborn girl was brought to Adisa. She was small and fragile, her eyes wide with wonder. Slowly, she opened her tiny palm, and there it was, the spiral mark, glowing softly just like Adisa's had years before. Adisa reached out and touched her hand gently. The wind stirred around them, carrying a soft, whispered drumming. The screen fades to black, and the words appear. When we listen, the land remembers. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.